This meeting is being held in conformance with the Sunshine Law. Notice of time, date, and place has been furnished to the Bergen Record and the Ridgewood News. Notice has also been posted on the Bulletin Board of the Administration Building. Clerk, kindly take the roll.
Mayor Giordano.
Here.
Mr. Brennick.
Here.
Ms. Sarah Drake. Here. Mr. Martinello.
Here.
Mr. Ritchie.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Here. Ms. Wincake.
Everyone kindly rise for Pledge Allegiance. Let us have a moment of silence for all our world veterans and all veterans across our country who have given the ultimate sacrifice to save our country, some never returning home, so that we can live in a land that is free. What is the prayer?
Dear Lord, we start this meeting asking for your guidance and wisdom. May we find unity and fairness. The outcome should reflect our wishes to assist the borough in all their endeavors. Thank you in his name. Amen.
Amen. Good evening, everyone. Before we begin our meeting, like we've always been doing, look to your left, look to your right, look in front of you, and look in back of you. Say hello to your neighbors, and say hello to everyone. At this time, we're going to have Phoenix Advisor do a presentation for us about a pilot program. This is a educational or an informative program or presentation that is being done. After he finishes his talk, the council will have questions for them. Anybody from the public, after the council asks their questions, of course, the council will have an opportunity to ask questions also for the representative from Phoenix. Everything will be addressed to the Phoenix representative.
Thank you. I'll look over as quick as possible. I know it's maybe not the most exciting topic in the world, but thank you very much for having me this evening. So my name is Brian Morris. I'm with Phoenix Advisors. So we're a financial consultant working with a number of entities across the state on a number of different financial concerns, pilots, of course, being one of them. So I wanted to come just give a brief overview about pilots, generally speaking. These numbers and this information I say is just kind of sample, illustrative purposes only. It's not tied to any specific project or anything like that. So in short, what is a pilot? It's a tax abatement tool that's in the borough's redevelopment toolkit to help spur economic growth and help get projects done and built that otherwise would not be financeable. They might be financeable because the interest rate environment is too high. The rents, they can't be as high as they need to be to support the costs. The construction costs are high. Obviously, we're coming out of COVID. What you heard about all the time was construction costs are sky high. Now, the rents have caught up to that, but again, it helps get projects done that otherwise cannot get done under a conventional tax scenario. So pilot stands for payment in lieu of tax. So even though it's called a tax abatement, the developer, the owner, is still paying something. It's just a negotiated value instead of your traditional conventional property taxes. It's generally on the improvement portion of the property only. The land portion or the land taxes, there's certain caveats under the law, but it can either be subject to taxation as it normally would be or exempted as well. And that depends, it's on a per project basis up to the borough. The amounts due under a pilot are a municipal lien, just like conventional taxes. If they don't pay, you can foreclose on the property, just like anyone else not paying their taxes. Generally, tax appeals are not permitted, so it also helps under that, give you leverage against any tax appeals. There are two types of pilots. There's a long-term tax exemption law and a short-term. So a short-term is like if I build a new addition to my house, I can ask you for a 5-year payment. So I would pay as a percentage of conventional taxes, 0%, 20%, 40, 60, 80, and then 100% it would be over. So that's usually used for smaller improvements or additions, things like that. The long-term tax exemption law offers the borough a lot more flexibility to help shape the project the way that they want, the way you want, unit density, types of affordable units, unit counts, et cetera. And it could be for as much as 30 years, although we've certainly seen them as short as 15 years, maybe a little shorter in some specific instances. Most of this, what I say, is going to be about that long term, the 30-year pilot. And of course, kind of why we're here is the municipality really needs to evaluate the costs and benefits, the pros and cons of embarking on any pilot project. So as I mentioned, the purpose is to help projects that otherwise cannot deliver the financial returns that are needed to get financed. So oftentimes in uncertain markets, or if there's different macroeconomic things going on, like I mentioned before, it's difficult for these projects to attract private investment. It's obviously relatively risky, especially if you could buy, look at the stock market, treasury bonds, what have you. This is a much more speculative asset, so it's going to command higher returns. The other thing with the conventional taxes is just the uncertainty around those taxes. We like to say, it generally goes up 2% per year or what have you, but you really don't know. So when you're a bank looking to lend on a project for a 30-year horizon, you need some certainty that that developer is going to be able to repay that loan over a long-term horizon, and the pilot lets you do that because we'll get into in a little bit, but you're structuring the payments as a percentage of their revenue rather than a fixed tax obligation that could change, year to year without any ability to project such change. The other thing, too, I always like to say is that it's really a partnership between the borough and the developer, or a developer. If they do better, their income is higher, the pilot payment gets higher. Conversely, if they're a little slow, not leasing up, or the project's not getting off the right foot as quickly as you'd like, they're not saddled with that fixed tax obligation that would essentially force them into immediate foreclosure. It gives the project a little bit of a runway to kind of get off the ground and become successful. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but I can if you do have specific questions. But the borough can also issue redevelopment area bonds to help a project, to help fulfill a shortfall in the capital stack. That's usually issued for specific purposes, like if there's big infrastructure, public infrastructure costs, or other things. If, for example, if they want to add a nice public park to the project or what have you, we can go into a little bit more of that. But typically, you don't see that with every pilot. So the pilot can be calculated under the laws two different ways. 2% of total project costs. I will say that that's generally a prohibitively high pilot and has kind of fallen out of favor in the last 10 or 15 years. So the more common way is a percentage of their annual gross revenue. So if they make $1 million, 10% is the minimum. The pilot payment would be $100,000. 10% is the minimum under the statute. There are some exceptions depending on the affordable housing and what have you. Generally speaking, 15% or so, 15 to 20% is probably the higher end of that range. But it is a negotiation based on the financial metrics and the borough's cost-benefit analysis. If the land is not exempted, they receive a credit against the land tax, so they are just paying the pilot. So they would still pay the land tax, but receive a credit against it, so that the pilot is the only payment that's going out. The municipality keeps 95% of every pilot dollar. 5% statutorily goes to the county. There's also, I mentioned earlier, that 20, 40, 60, 80% of conventional taxes. There are certain phase-ins of those over the 30 years as well. So in addition to the 5-year, you get those phase-in down. It's really downside protection. So if their revenue for some reason is significantly low in 1 year, you have that percent of taxes to act as a backstop to make sure that there's a floor. The municipality also collects a 2% administrative fee to help supplement any finance office or tax collection extra. It's not exactly as easy as just billing your taxes, which go through Edmunds or whichever system you use. There's a little bit more legwork in billing the pilot. The municipality may also negotiate upfront community benefits, whether it's an upfront payment towards, again, a borough priority, like a park or something else, and that's all subject to negotiations. The presentation that I provided, there is a pro forma, sample pro forma, just so you can see the difference between a pilot and conventional taxes. But again, it's just showing that under the pilot, that relief provides the returns that warrant the investment, and under the conventional taxes, it would not provide sufficient returns for some 1% administrative fee. Take out the 5% to the county. There's the land tax credit if the land is still taxable. So in my hypothetical example, the developer made about $2 million per year. The pilot was a little over $200,000. You took off those items, added back the admin fee, and the net to the town was about $155,000. So there is some calculation, that needs to occur each year when you're looking at it. One of the larger things that we look at in terms of the cost-benefit analysis is the impact of the project from the new residents it produces, as well as potential school children that it produces. So again, this is why it's important to do a thorough cost-benefit analysis, because you need to be sure that the additional revenue you're collecting is sufficient to offset any potential negative. So what I will say with respect to residents and municipal costs, generally find that to be pretty low. Most towns are already built out with adequate EMS, fire, police, etc. If the project was on the outskirts of town, somewhere where people don't typically provide such services, perhaps that would have a little bit bigger of an impact. But if it's in kind of the downtown city center, it's unlikely. It's already being, serviced by EMS, fire, police, what have you. So it's likely that it would not have a large impact. The school situation can be quite variable. Number one is we found that the number of school kids produced by newer rental units is not as high as you would typically expect. In the presentation, I included an example from a 120 unit project based on the applicable multipliers from a Rutgers study that they did. The 120 units produced about 20 kids. Right, so a lot of times you say 120 units, they'll have 2 kids per unit, so that's 240 kids. It'll overburden the school system. That's not necessarily the case. It's oftentimes a lot lower than you might think. But again, you have to go through the exercise and look at the potential cost of those students. What I will say is the school budgets, I don't know how familiar everyone is with that, but it works different than the town budgets. Your budget is a rate-based budget where you set the tax rate and apply it to the assessed values of what's in the town. The school budget is a budget-based levy. So they say our budget is $50 million, and they just spread it across everyone. So they do not gain or lose a dollar by the pilot going into effect, even though, as I mentioned, there's no carve-out for the school district to collect any of the money from the pilot. We typically use the cost of classroom instruction as a benchmark for the the school costs. That's the actual variable cost of teachers, supplies, what have you. It omits a lot of the fixed costs from like the schools and the administration, what have you. But even that is usually typically fairly conservative. It doesn't really account for economies of scale. If you add 5 kids to the school, it's unlikely that there'd actually be real cost. So it all depends on the orders of magnitude. So just overall, in summary, the benefits of the pilot is really that it provides a predictable revenue stream to the borough that could be earmarked towards future capital projects. It can be used to supplement future property tax increases. It's a long-term, stable, non-tax revenue, which, I know you mentioned something about talking about the budget tonight. Things like that are really helpful in budget preparation on the revenue side. The pilot payment typically results in more revenue to the municipality than conventional taxes would be, just because the borough's share of taxes is usually about 25-30%. It can serve as a catalyst for new development in areas that need revitalization. It allows for greater flexibility during the negotiations. Like I said, you have more input on the types of units, the density, how the project looks, etc. There's ongoing transparency. The developer under the pilot law has to provide you with project cost certifications, annual audits, etc. So you're kind of as I mentioned, a partner, and you're seeing that information. And then finally, I talked about the community impact payments, upfront payments, guaranteed minimums, on and off-site public improvements, so there's all kinds of also other non-financial benefits as well. So that is a very quick, high-level overview. So I'd be happy to answer any questions or provide any other information you would.
Brett, one of the things just to touch on, the developers maxed out on the profit they see each year as well, right? And anything above that comes back to the town.
Correct. There is a statutory net profit calculation that they are supposed to include in their annual audit that will show that. So if they do exceed that profit, then yes, the money would come back to them.
Thank you for your presentation. It was very informative.
Sure.
So first question, what makes a bad pilot, right? There's things in the news that Hackensack has a problem or this town has a problem with their pilot. What makes a bad pilot?
I would say not dedicating the correct resources to the evaluation of the cost benefit and going through those motions, as I mentioned. Even if you don't think there's any impact to the municipal budget, it should be explored and looked at. Even if you don't think there's any impact to the school, it should at least be explored and looked at. And then I also think a lot of times when in the past, I don't think it quite happens as much now, but the developers were just, not to say anything bad about developers, but they're obviously in it to make as much money as possible. They'd come in with a proposal, that the town wouldn't necessarily go through the motions and just say, yep, that's fine, we want that project developed, and maybe left money on the table, or something wasn't properly vetted that, like you said, years later kind of comes back to the surface. So I really just think just scrutinizing it, talking about it, doing that analysis is really makes a huge difference.
Yeah, just to follow up on that, we always talk about in my old job, FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You have to remove those things when you're starting a project, right? The fear is schools are not going to be funded. So you already said the school's going to be funded.
Right.
The doubt is, where does that funding come from? So if I was just collecting taxes on that property, well, some portion of those taxes would be directed to the school. So now that they're not earmarked for the school, it goes to the town, I'm still paying that money. So it may reduce the amount of money that I'm making on the pilot because I have to still pay the school instead of paying it from the tax that was on that property. But in the end, based upon that calculation, we have to look at what the benefit is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think just a clarification on the school point. So if, just using round numbers, if the property currently is paying the school, $50,000 in taxes, and then it goes away under the pilot, it's now zero. They're not losing that $50,000, it's just being spread across the rest of the tax base. However, the borough is then getting this influx of new revenue, which should stabilize taxes, potentially reduce or not go up as much as they would otherwise. So I look at it as a taxpayer, maybe this pocket's going up, but this is going down, and you're net equal or net positive, theoretically.
So a way to look at it is, if my cost would have gone up, and I needed to pass that along to the taxpayers by increasing the tax to pay for the school.
Right.
Now I'm offsetting that by non-tax revenue. So I
Right.
don't need to raise the taxes to continue that same payment to our friends at the Board of Education.
Right, and that's what I was saying before. The budget with the non-tax revenue is having that flexibility. Really helps a lot in the budget process because it's revenue that you're collecting without just raising the taxes on all the residents and businesses in the town.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for a really great presentation. There's been a lot of misinformation about pilots, and I think it was really important from an educational purpose that, we hear about it. I do have one question. It sounds to me like guardrails have to be put in place in any kind of pilot negotiation to make it work. Am I kind of correct in assuming that?
Yeah, absolutely. And the statute's designed to offer multiple, prongs of the analysis. So, like I said before, there's the percent of their revenue, but then there's also the percent of taxes as the floor. We always try as a firm to negotiate as many of those prongs and guardrails, like you said, floors and things like that as possible to protect, the borough because, we'd like to think every project is going to be a huge success, and hopefully they all are, but right, there's ups and downs, there's COVID times, there's things happen, right? So you need to make sure it's really striking that good balance where there's enough flexibility going back to kind of the lending return side on the developer, but then also making sure that the borough is not getting shortchanged in those stress test scenarios as well.
That's exactly what I was thinking about, because obviously we don't know what the financial picture is going to be in
Right.
general going forward. And I'm thinking of it just as a resident, if somebody can't pay their taxes, there could be like a 2-year grace period or whatever it is. So if they tried to pilot, the developer tried to do something like that and extend out a payment because they're having difficulty, I think something would have to be built in, correct, to avoid that.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a couple things there. I mean, under the law, it's just like you could take a municipal lien and foreclose on it, they don't pay, just like any taxes. You can also work out some arrangement, right, if you so chose. But there's different, different methods.
Different ways to structure that. Okay, thank you.
Anything else?
One more. So you talked about some different parameters like upfront payments and things like that. Generally, payments start coming in once the owner is making revenue on the property.
Correct.
The upfront payment is something you can do in addition in part of the negotiation?
Yes, you can, and you can also, there's different thresholds or timings of when that would become payable. So, again, just hypothetically, let's just say you negotiate a $100,000 contribution to the park, next door, hypothetically. You could negotiate certain times when that comes in, right? Like maybe a third of it comes in when they sign the agreement and the council passes the ordinance approving it, and a third comes in when they pull the building permit, and a third comes in when they get the CO, or something like that. So you can structure it so that there is some benefit that the borough can see ahead of time, because your point is very important in that you negotiate this, you sign the agreement, and then the developer has to go get the financing, build the project. You're looking at potentially 2 or 3 years, probably 2 years in a good economic environment. Then what if something happens again, downturn, we have to kind of, going back to what you were saying before, you kind of plan for the best or plan for the worst and hope for the best, right? So you just have to make sure that there are those guardrails in there because, it could take 5 years, right, for the project to get done. And, you don't have a control over that, but through the negotiation, you can try to, get something ahead of time or some other benefit, to the borough in the meantime.
Did you have any questions or follow-up for Brian? No, actually, that was really good, and we're just working on the redevelopment agreement, and we have some of the community benefits included in that as well, so just the documents we will be looking at. But
Okay.
we're always working with you.
Yeah, likewise. I guess I didn't say anything wrong from a legal perspective. We got slapped from behind.
Is there anybody from the public that would like to ask Brian some questions about the pilot? If you could just kindly come up.
State your name and address.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Honorable. A payment in lieu of taxes, do I correctly understand that as like a tax abatement, a concession, that the payments would be less than the normal tax rate? Okay, so we are talking about a development going into Bergen County, one of the top-rated counties probably in the country, and giving somebody, a private entity, money to build a private development, and we are going to give them a tax abatement. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes, but I'll add two caveats. Number one is the whole purpose of the pilot is essentially to help financing something that's otherwise not financed. So that's part of that due diligence and cost benefit analysis and everything that I mentioned before, which is analyzing the project to ensure that the level of pilot is required in the way that the project is done. So when you look at it that way, the pilot is more than the real conventional tax would be, because the real conventional tax would be zero. Because
But then there is no liability to the borough for services or other infrastructure to accommodate something that did not happen. And I would posit to the council that in Bergen County, where housing is at a very short supply, and if I remember correctly, the average housing unit in Waldwick is worth about $700,000. I would be very interested in some hard numbers about why we would be contemplating a tax concession. I have heard some statements about possible third-party revenue from decisions that people who would inhabit this project would make. I hate dealing with hypotheticals because the actions of third parties are completely out of my control. And for those honorable members who know me, you know I hate things that are out of my control. So I would be very curious in seeing some hard numbers based on previous experiences here in Waldwick. I mean, Waldwick Station was built, and I do not believe there was a tax concession of any kind to that development. Can someone on council confirm that?
There was not,
No
they
pilot.
did install it after they started construction, and so it's legally not required.
So there was no pilot for Waldwick Station. If my memory serves me, and you all probably know better than I do, the original DeMartini property, the old lumber yard that this project is sitting on, was sold for $3.2 million at the start of the project. Does anybody have that number? Probably not off the top. I do believe Waldwick Station was sold last year for $39 million as a completed project. I would suggest that a tax abatement to a private project is something that should be looked at with the most acute judgment. I am very uncomfortable with people postulating hypothetical expenditures from a population that does not exist to make up a tax shortfall from a tax abatement. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Jim Schultz, 52 Harrison Avenue. Have you ever had any pilots where they defaulted and the towns picked up the property?
No. I've worked on pilots that have defaulted, but in every instance that I can recall, the lending bank has stepped in to make the payments on their behalf because they, the borough as a first regime, if they foreclose on a property, the bank would lose their entire mortgage on the property. So 99 out of 100, in my experience, the bank will step in, make the payments, and fund the mortgage.
And they maintain the same contract then? Mr. Martinelli asked you about if there's ever been a pilot that went bad, and you set up the cost-benefit analysis. How does a cost-benefit analysis go bad? I mean, it's two people have to input data.
No, it's not the cost benefit analysis like that, it's that they just didn't do it.
Oh,
They just accepted whatever the developer offered, or they, agreed to things that perhaps they didn't fully understand in the moment. Yes, so it's not that the cost benefit was that, it's that they didn't do it.
Okay, but the state says you have to do one, right? I think for every pilot, there has to be a cost-benefit analysis?
You're supposed to. It doesn't mean that all towns do it. 'Cause I-
Right, but I think the state says you have to. Because supposedly you have to.
Correct.
Okay, so they,
It's probably different if you bring in a financial advisor to do it
Correct.
versus just let the developer show you one,
Correct.
right? So we already contracted with somebody to help us with that very important analysis.
Yep,
Before we
exactly.
make any decision, if we're losing money as a town, we can do that, right? So we have to negotiate a good deal for
Yeah,
us,
'cause-
not just for the developer.
because my fear would be the entire, like the sewer, the water, everything taken into agreement and looked at it from that. The administration fee, so if it's 95 and 5, is it 97 and 3, or where does that 2% come from?
No, so it's an addition, it's 2%, so that it's 2% of the 95 and 2. So it doesn't have to be 100, but
No,
it's
is it 100?
102.
It's
Okay,
97.
that-
Up to 102.
Yeah, it's
Perfect.
97 and 5.
Okay, perfect. That's, I was hoping it's 102, very good.
102.
And I think everybody here probably knows, but the Senate, that Bill 1807, in regards to pilot programs now have to include the school districts?
So that, I have my thing on the pulse for legal stuff, but I believe that that's, going through or
Okay. So with that, oh, do you know any, so you don't know anything yet with this?
I'm aware that's
Okay.
happening, but it's not final.
So going forward with this 1807, they mentioned, or who would we discuss this with that? Because there's some questions I would have with the 1807 and how it affects the pilot program we're looking at. So would that be,
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could submit the question in writing.
okay, because it has to do with the base, because that 5% goes away then.
So,
So-
I just want to, that hasn't been approved yet by the state, so, talk about hypothetical, we have no idea if that's actually been passed the legislature, the assembly, the Senate, be signed into law. It's proposed, but who knows?
It'll probably change 1,000
It could,
times.
yeah.
Right. But if we're to do a pilot, is it in the best interest to wait till this goes through? Because it's, instead of that 5%, it's now based on a per pupil cost.
If you would wait, you'd have no idea if that's ever going to be approved.
It could take 10 more years to approve
You
it,
have a new- yeah,
theoretically.
You have a new governor, you have, legislature and assembly, the Senate assembly that's still feeling things out. Who knows how long, how many bills get introduced and never signed into laws.
Is there any way to find out the status of it? Is it close or, because
I don't think it's anywhere close.
it's a big difference
Right.
between, I mean, now they're looking to pay a per pupil cost. Now, I just question, there's a line in here that says it's based on the Commissioner of Education. I hope that's the same number you get in the annual report card. So, I mean, that's a big sum. Now you're paying for every student that's going to be in that housing with that.
Right, yep. It is,
The last update I see here, it says that the bill was introduced on January 13th. There was action taken on February 5th to refer it to the State Budget and Appropriations Committee. They estimate the percentage at 25% of completion. So it's pretty far away from completion at this
I
point.
mean, do we have a timeline for the project?
No one's even submitted a request for a pilot yet.
So it hasn't been submitted, so the longer we wait, the better off we may be. Because again, there's a difference between 5% and if it's $22,000 per student.
I just wanted to see what we can get out of the negotiation. That's kind of where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
yeah, and just to reiterate, everything I said was hypothetical.
Yeah.
It's not based on any specific project, so it's, obviously, like I said before, if and when a project comes, we'd have to do all of that very, to the prior commenter's point, all of that resource, the hard numbers, all of that analysis
Okay.
prior to.
And one last, the revenue that you speak about, is that based on 100% occupancy or?
Typically based on 95%. There's usually a 5%
So if
vacancy
it's at
allowance. yeah.
90%, then there is no payment or it's reduced? How does that work?
No, if the pilot's 10%, you get 10% of the revenue, whether it's 100% occupied, 90%, or 10%.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. Thank you for your presentation. Do you have any information about surrounding towns or other pilot programs? Or is that out of your?
Sure, yeah. I'm not off the top of my head, but I could, if you had a specific question about one, or just generally speaking, I could
So
certainly.
just maybe how popular they are, or which way towns are kind of leaning towards, or is the trend more to have these pilot programs, or is there any information?
I don't know if I could, make a general statement to say, I mean, there certainly are a lot of them. I don't,
Okay.
I don't,
Maybe could you provide some examples of how they were structured, maybe in an email after
Sure.
the fact? Would that help? Yeah.
Yeah, something like Allendale, Hohokus,
Mm-hmm.
similar towns to us in
Sure.
geographic and demographics and population, that would be good.
I know Woodcliff Lake just recently had, one had as well.
Okay, yep, absolutely. Can follow up.
We have a question from a resident in the audience.
Stay there.
That was a little low.
Elise Didymo. Do you need my address? I don't remember what you said. Okay. You have it? So you were talking about the hypothetical number of 120 units that would produce possibly 20 students. So Waldwood currently pays about $13,000 per student, regular. If you have a special need, I don't mean regular as in a regular student, I'm talking about regular tax rate, but a special needs student would be probably double that, if not more. So if the pilot program doesn't necessarily provide to the school, right, in a set number, we're talking about 20 students, maybe approximately a classroom size. I don't have kids, but I'm guessing that a classroom is anywhere from 20 to 30 students. But 20 students would be $260,000 a year per that. How do we make sure that we get that revenue to the school to provide what is needed?
Yeah, great question. So number one is all of that would be a detailed analysis that would occur. But based on your hypothetical example.
It's based on your hypothetical example.
Yeah, fair enough. So number one is I would go back to the point where the school is a budget-based levy. So if the school says we got 20 new kids, so we need to increase our taxes to pay for those children, they will collect every single cent that they need, regardless of whether or not there's a pilot on this project. Whether it's vacant land, a pilot, or paying full taxes in, again, a hypothetical scenario, they would get the same amount of money. It's not impacted. They strike their budget and they collect every penny. The town collects it on their behalf, and actually the town bears the risk of people not paying their taxes. They have to pay the school 100% of every dollar they request. So
So you're
again,
saying that the budget for the school portion is separate from the pilot? Or is that,
yes, yep.
Okay.
They're completely.
so you're going to have the pilot, which is going to pay for all the other services the town provides, correct?
Yes.
And then the school portion is a separate budgetary number that will be collected separately on an annual basis based on how many students come in?
So the pilot itself has no provision to provide the school with any revenue.
I understand that.
Right. But the school budget, just like they normally tax today, after the pilot would tax the same exact way. So if their budget goes up, they just tax more. Now, the idea being, yes, they're taxing the residents more because the costs went up, but the pilot, by virtue of providing the borough with more money, it's the kind of the example of the one pocket versus the other.
But actually, that's
This-
providing the borough with less money based on what we would get tax-wise. So where would that deficit come from if needed? Would other people have their budget raised, their taxes raised to make up that deficit?
So the pilot, just to be clear, is always going to increase the revenue to the borough, because what you're comparing the pilot against is a vacant piece of land,
Which could be sold each.
if it's owned by the
So
borough.
both of these are hypotheticals,
Right.
right? So you're saying hypothetically it's vacant, but hypothetically it could also be sold, so. It's currently vacant. Underutilized, currently vacant.
Right.
We have this project that could bring in revenue and get a tax abatement. or we could do something else with that property and also make money. So,
But the borough doesn't own the property, right?
no, I understand, I know we don't own the property, I get that.
The calculation would be, right now, how much tax revenue does that piece of property bring into us?
Right.
If it brings in $67,000 we get from that piece of property right now. So if we were able to generate
$1 million?
$1 million of property, that's a big benefit to the town, right? But we're talking about hypothetical numbers, we have to look at what the development is bringing in revenue. They have a number, right, that has to be looked at, and then we have to do a calculation. We're talking about $67,000 that we have right now, compared to, we could bring in $1 million.
So $67,000 is based on the current,
Properties that are there right now.
which are not being used, right?
Well, there's a few houses there, right?
Right.
That are there, some of it's vacant land that is not built on.
Right,
There are
so
a
those
couple
homes are pretty old, right?
houses. Right.
Yeah, so,
So even if somebody were to knock them down, build a new house, you're saying, oh,
Right,
maximum, we're gonna
exactly.
get $20,000 for a new house. If they built 4 new houses there, it's $80,000. Right? Simple math.
simple.
So the development, it has to be a calculation of how much we think we can get from the payment.
Well, I just want to reiterate what Joanne said, is that
Well, it has to be met, right?
we need
I
to
agree with
really
that.
consider, we really need to consider, we really need to
We don't know
consider
if it's
how
worth
much,
$39 million.
how
This is
much
not
and
developed.
how long the tax abatement would be. So that's really
I think
the
hopefully we get
concern,
there.
is how long will it be, and how, we
Hopefully
don't
we'll
want a
get there.
30-year abatement,
Yeah.
right? That's too long.
I'm sure we'll make it very public what the negotiated pilot is when we get there. I think we want a good deal, but they haven't even asked for one yet, so I don't want to start negotiating against ourselves
Okay.
publicly.
So they haven't asked for one, so that part
So
I
far,
don't
we
think
have
people
not
are
been
clear,
asked.
so.
So all this is hypothetical.
Yeah, and I apologize for the hypothetical leads to a bit of an abstract conversation, right? What if
Right,
this,
of
what if
course.
this, what if this? So the intention was just to kind of present the process, the idea, and
And the
so-
what if they ask for one, and what is it going to involve, and what are we going to get or not get from it?
And that's the thorough cost-benefit analysis, looking at the hard numbers, presenting a similar presentation, but with hard facts, and, to
Okay,
hopefully answer
hard facts are
questions.
really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And just to clarify one thing, in your example of 120 units, this is a 44-unit project, so I think the estimate's like 6 kids, not 20.
Right.
Yeah. So-
Depending who moves in, it could be,
Yeah, maybe.
you know,
maybe
you
it'll be
can't,
20.
you can't figure out
Yeah, but-
how many kids are going to be
I could sell my house
born.
tomorrow and a family with 10 kids could move in.
Exactly.
I've got 10
You
kids.
could sell it pretty fast. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else from the audience?
Just really quick, sorry if you had already said this, but I assume there's at least a minimum payment that they would have to make.
Yeah, so.
Before you put that into the pilot.
Right, so the minimum percentage is the 10% that I've mentioned. So 10% of their revenue is the statutory minimum pilot payment. Now, there's also, like I said, other floors, like the 20, 40, 60, 80% that phase in over time. There's also just a statutory definition that they can't pay less than you were collecting prior to the pilot. So like in the absolute worst case scenario, they build this thing and just nobody moves in. You're at least getting what you were getting before, if not more, from these other tests.
And you are still getting the taxes, the ad valorem taxes on the land value.
Right.
Just one gate, I'll send you a website. It's a listing of all the pilots in Bergen County. So it shows you where they are, how much money what they pay, and how it's distributed.
Perfect, thank you.
I have
Anyone else?
I have one other question, and I'm not sure, it's another hypothetical, so if we want to go hypothetical on top of hypothetical. But why have these pilots become so much more, at least I've seen, increasing in frequency? Is it just that municipal budgets have been affected by inflation and by all the increase in expenses and?
Yeah,
I know
I
there's
think
a
it's a
lot of
combination of
elements.
both things. So the towns, I think there's pressure, like I was saying, to find non-tax revenues. And really, there's not a lot of them out there, right? And then number two, coming out of COVID, the construction costs increased dramatically, interest rates increased dramatically, lending restrictions from banks have increased over time, not just from COVID, but just in general. So, and then it goes back to what I was saying before too, is if you could buy a U.S. Treasury security, you know, and at a time it was higher than it was now, that's risk-free return. So if I could make 4 or 5% doing that, if I'm putting $20 million into a speculative real estate, I want to make 15%, right, at least, the risk-return calculation. So that necessitates, and just in New Jersey, property taxes are generally pretty high comparatively. So it's just that all of that factors into that model and that developer pro forma and the independent financial analysis that shows the need for that pilot in the project to make it successful going forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sorry, one more question. The percentage of the calculation, is that based upon gross revenue, net revenue, somewhere in between?
Gross.
Gross. Thank you.
Anyone from the audience? Okay, Brian, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Next up will be the public hearing for the 2026 Green Acre Land Acquisition, 197 Wyckoff Avenue.
Okay, tonight is our public hearing for the 2026, Green Acres Land Acquisition Grant for 197 Wyckoff Ave. We purchased this property in 2024 with 9 Brady for passive recreation that has restricted uses, which means we can't have any indoor facilities permitted, are permitted on this property. This is 3 acres total, with 197 Wyckoff being 2 acres, which is Block 136, Lot 6.02. We are seeking the maximum funding of $700,000 with a maximum of soft costs for $20,000. And if awarded, we will use those funds to pay down the principal. The borough went ahead and had already purchased this property, and so we're kind of doing this whole process backwards. And Green Acres is willing to work with us on that and have been really great. Our short-term plans for this property, the 2 leases will end in May. In the summer, the house that you see on Wyckoff Ave will be demolished. The property will be graded, seeded, and we will install the sign, which will dedicate the park as the Wagner Brearley Park. Our long-term plans, grant opportunity for park development through Green Acres and Bergen County. So there's a ton of grant opportunities out there from both of those. And so we will use those to, once we figure out exactly what we're going to do with the property, we will go ahead and apply for those grants. I want to thank the residents who answered the survey online. Based on the survey results, this all-inclusive park may include a walking track or path, seating, shaded areas, a gazebo, a water feature, garden, and small community playground. Those were the main responses that we got from the survey that went out. I'd like to open these comments to the council first, if anybody has any comments about the Planning Incentive Land Acquisition Grant. Okay.
What about my favorite park?
What about your what?
My favorite park that you didn't mention?
No, I'm not mentioning that part because it wasn't mentioned in the surveys.
Well, can I mention
But
it?
you can mention it. Go ahead.
I'd like to see a dog park. We have a lot of residents who have dogs, and I think it'll be a nice area for people to go and meet and say hello to each other and let the dogs share each other's friendship.
Okay. I will add that to the list.
The other thing I would like to add to the list,
Yeah.
which kind of goes with community gardens,
Mhm.
Access for All. We've already talked
Sensory.
about a community garden with raised flower beds.
Okay.
So that people with, even not just people with disabilities, but people who can't get down on the ground.
Sure.
To plant. That
Good
we could
idea.
have a few of those as well.
Great. Good idea.
I think it's a great plan to have there. I think it's great for the community to offset what we're also doing downtown with the redevelopment, having new green space for the town to enjoy. I would love a dog park.
Thank you.
My dogs would love it, and I heard Mayor Tom offer to be the poop scooper.
I'll
Give him a little hat.
even buy a dog.
Yeah, so that would be great.
Great.
I just want to add that a community garden would be nice, and if there's going to be a garden, perhaps a place to compost
Okay.
could help with the garden. And I've also heard other residents express interest in a dog park too.
Okay. They didn't do the survey, but that's okay, I'm adding it. Good, that's good. Anybody else from the?
The survey will be open the remainder of this week, so if any other residents still want to hop on after tonight's meeting and add, voice what their opinions are, that would be great.
Now, what's the next step? Oh,
One more point. I know we have a lot of Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts that come to do community projects. Maybe we could reach out to them once
Sure.
we get the ground running and see if they can help us with things.
Yeah, that'd be great. Eagle Scout projects,
Yeah.
Silver Award projects.
Support that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Flower beds and things like
Yep.
that, those are not that
Yeah, I
hard to
think
build.
someone made a bench too. That was fantastic.
Yes.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think once we start doing this, you're going to see a lot of residents come forward and want to get involved.
Anybody else from the council? I'm going to close the council's comments and
I
open.
close the council's comments, and I open it up to the public. Anybody from the public would like to comment on what was just said by our clerk? Nope. I close the public's comments and ask for a motion in a second. Motion by Joe, second by Katie. Clerk, when you get up here, you can take the roll.
Don't run.
No, we need you for the poll.
So this is Resolution 2026-71, authorizing the submission of an application to New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection 2026 Green Acres Program for planning incentive land acquisition funding for 197 Wyckoff Ave. And who was the motion?
Motion by Joe and then Katie.
Joe and Katie, okay.
And you take the roll.
Sure. Mr. Brennick?
Yes.
Ms. Saracola Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Martinello?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Wingate?
Yes.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll continue with reports of committees. First, under my report, last week, we accepted the resignation of our planning board chair, Adele Badamenti. She has resigned as of last week. We are moving up Mr. Fink to fill her unexpired term as a Class 4. And then we also brought up James Schultz from an alternate 2 to an alternate 1. Also, I just want to thank the residents who might have been a little inconvenienced with all the snow that came around yesterday. I know a lot of talk was all over the place. Our DPW did the best they could under the conditions. We had a lot of snow, and I want to thank the residents for being very patient. Some were not patient, but I could understand that it's hard. You have to, clean out your property, get yourself in your car and leave. So I want to thank you all for what you've done and how you handled just the situation, which was really hard. A lot of towns in the area were hit hard, and some towns weren't hit hard, but I think we survived it, and it'll continue to have the snow taken out of our area. Financial Administrative Committee, Mr. Martinello.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight, we continue with our budget introduction. Just a review from last council meeting. There's 3 components to the structure of the budget. You have the general budget, which we'll talk about at our next meeting, which covers day-to-day appropriations, salaries, operational costs. The second portion, which we're going to speak about tonight, is the capital budget. These are funds, infrastructure projects, buildings, roads, equipments, through bonding. And then the third piece is the water utility budget, which has its own set of general appropriations and capital, which we'll discuss at our next meeting. So for a capital review, last week we had another meeting to work with our finance committee, and there's a fairly significant increase in the overall budget, which we're going to talk about next week. And we had submitted that to our auditor for review on the cap and tax calculations. Once we get that back, we'll review it with the Finance Committee and look forward to our next council meeting for introduction of that. Tonight, we're going to look at the capital expenditure for 2026. Reminder to everyone, when we do a capital budget, we do have to set aside a down payment for a portion of that. So whatever capital we do approve, we have to pay a portion of that upfront to fit the budget. you will see that there were many requests made, and we are recommending that the council limit the capital expenditures to roughly $2 million, which is in line with what we did last year. This includes a list of roads recommended for paving in 2026. And as a note, this is already filtered down to account for the reduced amount available. These are the roads that are in most need of repair. Our DPW superintendent goes around and does a great job of providing us a list of those roads and a spot-on estimate of how much it will cost. So we kind of already filtered that list down to what we think we can fit in our budget for this year. And that $2 million budget we're talking about, just for frame of reference, just a few years ago, our capital budget was around $5 million. So you can see we more than halved the capital budget to make room for other things that we need to do. There are some very important items on here. We heard from Chief Seifert a few weeks ago talking about the request for the police department for the new body cameras and Axion equipment, which is sorely needed. There's also a bunch of requests from the DPW which need to be addressed on equipment that is desperately in need of replacement. And there's also some capital requests from the fire department that we're trying to get into the budget. They also had a request for a new fire truck, which replaces 2 existing units that we have. We're asking Councilman Brennick to head up a committee with the fire department to work together to look at long-term planning, nothing that we can commit to for 26, but definitely something to look at with them. Councilman Brennick has agreed to work with them on that. Right now, we also continued our conversation with the CFO on our surplus reduction. We had another year where our surplus was reduced, and we had information when we're looking at our bonding that continued reduction of surplus has a negative impact on your overall credit rating. Just like you or I, when we're going to apply for a credit card, if my debt is too high, I get a higher credit limit. So that would affect us long-term too as we continue to bond our debt. Also, there was a question about grants. As you know, the borough contracted with Bruno Associates last year to do our grant writing. Grants are a big portion of how we fund projects within the town. And one thing to keep in mind that our administrator talks about, a lot of those grants are matching funds. So when we go out and ask for funds from the government, we actually have to put up the same amount. So it's not just free money. You have to spend money to get money, which is great. And I'll just like to start giving a status report to folks about what we have in process. So currently there's grants submitted and pending approval of $286,000. We have grants under administration, meaning approved and looking to close out paperwork of $688,000, and awards closed since Bruno started tracking is $83,000. There's also 5 other grants that are in application process right now, and we're working with them to look at congressional grant opportunities. So just to wrap up, upcoming schedule, next week we're expected to get preliminary numbers back on our cap and tax percentage increases from the auditor, and we'll continue that preparation of the operational budget. And our March 10th meeting, we'll look to present the initial operating budget and water budget to the full council. Tonight we'll talk about capital, during later with the administrator. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Fire and Police Protection Committee, Mr. Brennick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'll be short. Since last we got together was 18 calls. Fortunately, there were no calls during the snowstorm. We were prepared for any emergency, but thankfully that never took place. That's really all I have tonight. It's going to be a long enough meeting, so.
Thank you. Public Safety Committee, Ms. Wingate.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick update from me too. I spoke with Walvac President Lucas, and he was working with the fire department, as I mentioned last time. So they're all set with drivers, and they're just in the process of training them. And but they are still looking for EMTs. So if anyone is interested in becoming an EMT or knows anyone that is interested, please feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Thank you. Recreation and Health Committee, Ms. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Board of Health doesn't meet until April, so I will report back at that time. And the Access for All committee schedule has been released. Their first meeting is March 9th, so I will be attending that meeting as well, and then I will report back after that. The other thing I wanted to mention, one of the residents last time had asked about the barn in Midland Park and whether our youth from Waldwick would be able to use the barn for some of their activities. So I know our administrator had reached out to the person who is in charge there at the barn and asked that question. And they are having an open house for people on April 11th from 11 to 1 p.m. And if anybody is interested in the camp, the summer camp, which our residents, our kids have been able to attend, they can go. And they're also, if there's any questions, they can be addressed to Tatiana at the borough, our borough administrator. As far as, I don't think we've negotiated anything for being able to use it beyond summer.
No, I spoke.
Yeah.
So I've spoken with the barn coordinator, Kathy Lamont, who will speak with the administrator in Midland Park to talk about the request from our residents and allowing our youth to be able to use that barn. They have a pretty extensive time frame. They're open Monday through Friday from, I think, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. where residents can come by and use their facilities. So I communicated to them that the request from our residents was if they would consider having our youth attend even at a nominal fee. And she said that it hasn't been the case in the past, but she would definitely pass it on to the higher ups to see if that's something that they would consider.
And also, what she also said was that any student that goes there has to be accompanied by an adult. They just can't drop the child off and pick them up when they take. It's going to have to be, they really do a good job there, and we're going to see what they say. They're going to get back to us. That's it? Okay, Public Works Committee, Mr. Ritchie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a whole lot to add except to reiterate thank you to the DPW for working long and hard. It's been a long time since we've had one storm like this, I think, let alone two back to back. So the logistics are a challenge, but I think, thank everyone for their patience. But I think we did a pretty good job. I drove around to other towns as well. I thought, by and large, we did a great job. So, hopefully we don't get more snow. I'm really kind of hoping for that. And this won't be a conversation we have to have again. But if we do, I think we'll be ready. As Joe mentioned, there'll be a number of items on the capital budget that we'll review, infrastructure projects, as well as purchase of equipment. So I'll hold my comments until we get to that section. Thank you, Mayor. That's it.
Thank you. Buildings and Grounds Committee, Ms. Ericola Drake.
Thank you. Starting with the Pistol Range, the project is looking good and on track to be completed by the end of March. The police department, the lighting replacements mentioned in my last report have now been completed. And finally, the new meeting space at Borough Hall project is being finalized, and we are just waiting on painting the room. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Our administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will reserve my comments for later this evening when we go over capital budget.
Lord Kelly.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to report, or just a reminder, that April 8th is the deadline for the change of party affiliation declaration forms for the election, for the primary election. We have issued 699 dog licenses to date, and just a reminder for those who have licensed their dog, they need to come pick up the dog license at Borough Hall in our office. There's a free rabies clinic in Wyckoff on March 21st from 1 to 3 p.m. at the DPW Garage, 475 West Main Street. Thank you.
Thank you. Our attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No report this evening.
Okay, are we going into close?
Yeah, we have one item for close for potential litigation, but no action will be taken when we come out.
Okay, great. Thank you. Consent resolutions and resolutions of the governing body.
Be it resolved that the following resolutions herewith listed by consent, having been considered by the governing body of the Borough of Waldeck, are hereby passed and approved as amended to include Resolution 2026-82, 2026-72 approval of consent, 2026-73 approval of minutes, amended regular meeting December 16, 2025, regular and budget meeting and closed session meeting of February 10, 2026. Policy votes. Melissa Avragenos? Thank you. Request to use Pavilion A on June 20th from 3 p.m. to dusk for a graduation party with alcoholic beverages being served. 2026-74, authorized renewal of Waldwick's accident and sickness policy for the Waldeck Fire Department, OEM, and Wallback. 2026-75, authorizing approval of Waldeck Volunteer Fire Department bylaw amendments. 2026-76, award an open-ended professional service contract to Valley Health System for drug and alcohol testing in the amount not to exceed $5,000. 2026-77, appointment to the Green Team. 2026-78, authorized cancellation of taxes, Block 162, .02, Lot 13, 2026-79, approval of appropriation transfers, 2026-80, payment of vouchers, and 2026-82, authorized redemption tax lien 23-00635.
Do I have a motion and a second to accept? Sure.
Just wanted to touch on 2026-75, the authorizing approval of the fire department bylaw amendments. Just wanted to make a note that this does not have an impact on the budget. This is just talking about the uniforms that'll be worn at certain times.
You stole my line.
I'm doing you a favor. Why don't you finish up, Councilman?
No, you open the can of worms.
Do I have a motion and a second? Motion by Mr. Joe, second by Mr. Andy. Anyone from the council on the question? 2026-74, that's a standard, it's our insurance policy that we have for our police, the fire, and the EMT. And then also 2026-76, that is the random drug testing that we do randomly with our DBWs. We're using another place to do it, and this is all standard housekeeping that we're doing. Anyone else? Clerk, please take the roll.
Mr. Brannick?
Yes.
Ms. Sarah Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Martinello?
Yes.
Mr. Ritchie?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Winky?
Yes.
Okay, we don't have no public hearing, we have no introduction of ordinances, we have unfinished business, which is the 2026 municipal budget discussion. No, what are you gonna do now? Oh my God.
Tiny, I'll read it for all.
Wow.
All right, what you'll see on what I've shared with the council, and I did make it a little smaller so you can have it all in one spot, but I can email this to everybody afterwards so you can look at it a little closer. On the left-hand side, you'll see the list of general capital projects that the borough approved last year, and the grand total that was bonded for those projects, $2.27 million. And on the in the middle column, you'll see the proposed general capital projects for 2026. So I'll take you through them. Hudson Avenue is a project that the borough's been talking about for quite some time, and we've worked on obtaining grants over the course of the past few years and have broken up the project into different phases. This is phase 2 of Hudson Ave, which is the actual paving and some additional work to be done. The construction cost on the Hudson Ave project is $690,000 with an additional $134,000 charge for cost estimate from the engineers. So that total project is $824,000. We've been able to offset that project by 2 NJDOT grants that we received over the course of 2 consecutive years, and that total is $322,199. So the project in this year's capital budget would equate to $502,000. Any questions on that project? We had some big playground improvements last year. No proposed playground improvements for this year. It is something to consider moving forward as we look at Borough Park. We do have 3 different areas with playgrounds, and so the thought has always been that we'd start with the old Lions Park and then potentially move over to the Emily Rice Playground on the right-hand side. To the playground on the right-hand side. But that is not in the budget for this year, but something that we will be talking to Bruno Associates about regarding any funding through grants to start preparing for that down the road. Next, move on to acquisition of IT equipment and various other projects. We have some switch upgrades that are being recommended by our IT consultant. So that is pretty low this year, $21,000. We did a large purchase of new equipment in 2025, both for our police department, our administration building, and our DPW. And so this year is just really sort of phase 3 of what we've been doing these past few years and getting everything updated and secure. Moving down to road resurfacing, this is a program that the borough invests in every year. So in addition to Hudson Avenue, there is a list of streets that have been recommended by our superintendent that need to be addressed this year. That total cost, and we looked at the list, we were able to eliminate a few of the streets just in terms of cost and, and financing for this year. But grand total is $247,000 being offset by 3 prior years. So we try to estimate as best as we can every year, but we were fortunate in the sense that the past 3 years we've had an overage on what we were bonding for those projects, and we can apply them to this year. So that would bring our out-of-pocket for this year to $59,000. Moving on to the... Yes.
Just, Tatiana, that gets us that section east of Route 17 where the grid is.
Thank you.
And then over by the Malcolm pumping station where we have a lot of our heavy equipment coming in and out of there, which has done a lot of damage to that road there. That kind of, a lot of the areas that the residents have complained about over the years or brought up, and that ties into what we're doing on the Hudson on part of that grid there. So I think it's a great set of roads to do for this year, given our capital that we have available.
It includes all the cross streets on Hudson in that area, so that whole area will have been completed entirely, which is a nice way to complete the project. Malcolm and Duncan have had a lot of work. We have a lot of utility locations back in that area, so they've taken a beating the past few years, and then those would be included. I'm sorry, just to adjust my total, $286,000 is our estimate, with an offset from the 3 previous years of $227,000.
Yep, and we also have a bunch of paving going on in the town from the county. So a lot of our major roads will also be paved this year. So there'll be a lot of paving going on around the town when the warmer part of the year gets here eventually.
Yes, the county has a pretty robust plan between 26 and 27 on our main roads, county roads. Moving down to DPW, we have some substantial requests. The councilman mentioned before, equipment is an important function of the DPW and the tasks that they're doing daily and what they're accomplishing, in town. And so we look at these requests. We acknowledge that they come at a higher cost, but they are essential to the department. The first request was for a Caterpillar wheel loader. Our current one is in need of replacing. That comes with a price tag of $345,000. Just to get my notes out on that. Our current loader is a 2012, and the anticipated life on a piece of equipment like this is 20 years. So this would put us in a good position to have a big piece of equipment like this that would be reliable and would last with the department for quite some time. The additional piece there is the snow plow pusher. That's an additional function that the CAT can perform. That's an additional $40,000, so we are looking at a total of $385,000. The DPW is also in need of a new truck with a body plow salter. That comes in at $311,500. The current truck that it's replacing is, I believe, a 2003. I have Mr. Latour here. And that truck would be, once we update that truck, our fleet will look and hopefully perform well for several years. So we would be in a good position overall fleet-wise with that replacement. The current one is in our parking lot, ready to be auctioned off at some point this summer. And the borough anticipates that with our old CAT machine and the current truck that we have, that we'll be able to get some money on auction for those pieces of equipment. So that would be the plan for those that we're phasing out. Any questions on equipment? Okay. Moving on to ADA ramps, this is something that we've been putting in the budget for the past several years, and this is in preparation for the roads that we are planning to pave in the future. and being compliant, we are looking at ramps that need to be updated around town, and so our engineer and Mr. Latour are able to identify, looking, to 2027, what roads we think will be paving, and the work that we'll do ahead of the paving so that the ramps can be updated. We did put money into the budget last year on traffic devices. We still have a portion of that money left. It is something the DPW and the police department have been working on. So there is no recommendation for this year to put that in, but I anticipate that's something that we can continue to put in every other year just to stay up to date. Those are, that equipment can be expensive, and something to just keep in mind moving forward. Thermostriping, we put this in every year as well. This year, the recommendation was about $25,000. We did not utilize our entire account last year, so we're offsetting that amount. That's where you get the $17,000 from. This is just, in line with the paving that'll be done throughout town. Then you'll see there's some items under DPW and fire as I get into the other sections that are highlighted yellow. The borough has what's called a surplus. I'm sorry, I didn't print that part for you guys. A capital surplus account, which allows us to take some items that might be of less cost and put them together so that we can fund them without having to go out and bond for them. So the intention is to take some of these lower price tagged items and put those together so that it doesn't go against the bonding amount, but would allow us to do, some additional work. So when you get into DPW, they have a fuel management system that is in need of repair, or I'm sorry, in need of an upgrade. That is essential to the function of all of our vehicles, whether it be police department, DPW, any vehicle that's borough-owned. If that system is down, there's no ability to get fuel, and that obviously will pose a problem. So we've kind of extended the life currently of the fuel management system, but the upgrade is being highly recommended for this year. And then there's a garage door upgrade that's needed at the DPW facility. You'll see that listed as well. Any questions before I go on to fire? Yes?
The highlighted areas, are they netted out in the total, or are they still in there?
No, they're out of
They're
the
out,
total,
okay.
and it just didn't print that line for you guys. Yep, but I'll get you that amount. It's about $58,000 that'll, be taken, that's not allocated in there. So we go over to fire. There are some reoccurring line items that we put in every year, turnout gear, PPE being one of them. So the PPE equipment recommendation is $25,000. The fire department has a fit test machine for face pieces that they use. It has reached end of life and being recommended that we replace it. You'll see that's listed there at $12,600. And then the Knox boxes that we have around town, which assist not only fire department but also our fire prevention office. We've been funding this through capital the past few years in different phases. This is the last phase of the Knox box, having all the buildings around the borough updated with this technology, which has been helpful to everybody who is servicing those locations. Fire suppression system remains about the same that we do every year, $8,500. Communications is a new line for this year. You'll see there at $20,000. That would allow for the fire department to replace any radios that fail. We currently do not have any backup radios for the fire department. Those are costly, so at about $9,000 each, that would allow for potentially up to 2 new radios if the need is presented in 2026. Again, with capital, we don't lose this money, so we can kind of start to build a little nest for the purposes of just being responsible and having that available to the fire department if needed going forward. Radio upgrades is a one-time, for this year, we'll say it's a one-time upgrade for the radio system. That'll be at $25,000. So you'll see that some of those items are being allocated into the capital surplus, and the other gets you to the 70,000 that you see on the total for fire. Fire did have 2 additional requests, and those are pushed to the column on the right for potential 27 capital items or beyond. As the councilman mentioned before, a rescue engine was discussed, and while the borough doesn't have the ability to make that commitment in this year's capital project accounting, we can start to look at potentially some options moving forward, but that'll be done through a committee that'll be set up with Mr. Brennick, who will be the point of contact for the council. And then there was a request for a chief's vehicle, which is actually the assistant chief's vehicle, for replacement. Moving on to police, we had Chief Seaford here several weeks ago to talk about what Axon is and the upgrade that this would provide for his department in terms of body-worn cameras, tasers, and just the processing of the information that they have in their department. This is costly. This is a 5-year buy-in with a fully bonded amount this year, $414,000. That would cover the cost for the next 5 years. We did check with our auditor, and we did, unfortunately, even though Axon was able to give us yearly payment options, we did have to bond, being that it is a capital project, we had to bond that full amount this year.
But from a cash perspective, we can delay the payment at 0%
Yes.
interest.
Correct.
Over the 5 years, so.
Correct. They've been very willing to work with the department. And it is their only request for this year from the police department.
Yeah, and we talked about a lot of those benefits being cloud-based environment. It's going to reduce the time that the men have to do to produce those body camera images to various requests. So definitely an upgrade that is well needed.
And then we do have a request, and it was on one of the prior year, I believe, lists, for a standby gas generator at the police department. The one that we currently have is end of life. Knock on wood, it's still plugging along, but we do want to be prepared so that when that day comes, we're not surprised and we've got it available. That's a $130,000 price tag to it. There is potentially a savings of $25,000 for a piece that we may not need. We don't know that quite yet, but we would budget for worst case scenario so that we can make that improvement at the police department. That is, obviously overall, it connects the police department and the borough hall, and the administration building in the case that we lose power. So that is our main source of backup. That brings us, any questions before we just talk about final numbers?
No, and council members, you'll see on the right column that administrator was talking about. There's 4, maybe 5 items, if we have to talk about another one, where we're suggesting as the finance committee we push those off in talking with Superintendent Latore and the finance committee on the fire department items. Those are the items that we're looking at pushing off, which gets us down to around that $2 million number. We were even questioning maybe the $25,000 up at the top for the admin building security enhancement. Maybe in fact just doing that because it's not a big expenditure, but improves the security around the complex here and gives us more. And in this world, just the cameras of having people coming in and out of the building make our staff feel a little more safe.
Thank you. I will be sharing this with the council, and any feedback otherwise or questions as you look at into it further. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has.
Yeah, I think there's one other item too, Tatiana. I know we talked about it last week, the sewer items that we were talking about, which are not part of the water budget.
Yes, thank you. There are some sewer projects that we were discussing as part of these preliminary meetings with Mr. Latore, and their sewer station improvements, one of them being at Woodside and Derby and the other being on Sheridan Ave. And those hard costs are close to or over $500,000. One of them would require engineering costs, so making this a pretty significant project. And the idea and the thought there is for us to reach out to the iBank to see if we can pursue some sort of loan through the iBank for these projects so that we can relieve that off of our general capital.
Yeah, and some of the benefits of going iBank like we did when we did PFAS, there's potential to get remediation or to get some forgiveness on some of that if we do our paperwork correctly and the government is kind to us. Those sewer improvements are very important, as I've learned from these meetings. That's a separate system than your water system, so that's why we don't include that as part of the water budget. And if we had a catastrophic failure of one of these things, we'd be having a major mess in some of our residents' homes. And getting ahead of that and doing necessary maintenance is important to maintaining the health of our residents and the health of our systems. So looking at other various financing opportunities is very important to making sure this budget kind of works for us.
Yes.
Anyone else?
Mayor, can I just double down on something Joe said earlier, which is I really think we ought to keep repeating it. It looks like a lot, but I think if you go back 4 years, we were spending more than twice as much in capital every year. So we've really sharpened our pencils as a mayor and council, and we're going with kind of the bare essentials here in these times. So I think this is I think it's really exciting that for, I think, going on 3 or 4 years now, we've been able to maintain this at about $2 million a year. So it gives me hope that we'll be able to continue that for a bit longer. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone that participated with this. Okay. Anybody from the council have any new business? Nope. Okay, public comments. Anybody from the public would like to comment, please come to the microphone and please state your name only for the record.
Good evening. My name is Jim Sheehy. Thank you for your time. My son Jack is a middle schooler here in town. He's been building computers and 3D printing for years. These are just projects that we did at home, and we're looking for something more. And we're looking for something that every kid in town could have access to, not just ones who were lucky enough to be able to do it at their house. So about 2 years ago, we went to a robotics competition, and what I saw there was incredible. Quick thinking, teamwork, high-end mechanical and electrical engineering. The kids were coding to fix problems on the fly. And I remember thinking, I want that for my son, and I want that for Waldwick. So I went home, and that night I just made a Facebook post, and I just said, would anyone in town be interested in a robotics club? And from that one post, we got one team last year. This year we had 5 teams and 40 kids. It exploded. Through the help of amazing parent volunteers, our club teaches programming, basic electronics, engineering, 3D printing and design, and more. And we also compete annually in the first robotics competition. This is hands-on STEM. The kids are learning. This is working. For example, sorry, I was nervous. I forgot to bring this up. This is a robot that the kids designed and 3D printed themselves. It's all unique. Started out drawing on a piece of paper and ended up designing it and printing it themselves. They put cameras on it, motors on it, a computer, and they can control it with a cell phone or a computer, and it even has an AI module on the front that can identify objects autonomously. This is the level that our kids are working at. These are Waldwick kids. This season, in just our second season, we competed in the Don Bosco Robotics Tournament. We had one of our teams won the event, and 3 of our teams beat the Don Bosco sponsored teams. At the regional tournament, multiple Waldwick teams won awards, and one of our teams advanced to the state tournament from there. These are Waldwick kids coached by parent volunteers, and they're competing against well-funded school programs, and they're winning. And it's not slowing down. We're expecting to grow even more next season. We could even expand the program beyond where it is now. Right now, it's mostly 4th through 7th grade, but that's just because that's where the kids are, the kids of the coaches. But we could expand to younger kids and all the way through high school. The demand is there. The issue is we have limitations with our space. The honest truth is that if we can't get the space issue addressed, we're going to have to turn kids away because we just don't have room. This is an all-volunteer club. No one is making any money on this. It's just parents who care deeply about STEM education and the opportunities for Waldwick kids. We are truly grateful for the space that the town's already given us. But to be honest, twice a week is not enough, and that's all that's available at the moment. The successes that we've had have created growing pains, and what we need is we need a dedicated room where we can leave equipment set up. We can build our competition fields and meet daily like the strongest programs do. We have a real chance to do something special here in Waldwick. We have incredibly bright kids. We have extremely dedicated parent volunteers. And Waldwick could become a real powerhouse in STEM and robotics. The foundation's there, we just need a place to work. The town invests heavily in sports, and we absolutely respect that. But we're not asking for a new turf field, we're just asking for regular access to a room. A place where the kids can keep building, learning, and winning for Waldwick. If you help us, you're not just supporting the club, you're investing in the future of Waldwick kids. Thank you.
I received your email. I received your email over the weekend, and I forwarded it to Tatiana. I know you're working with the ambulance corps, you have days there. I know that there's a room available here for maybe 2 days.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, you know, we have to look at this. I mean, we just got over a snowstorm, so now we're going to start figuring out what's available. We maybe reach out to the school, reach out to other schools in the area to see if they have a place to accommodate you. The biggest concern or the problem might be is just to take a room and just have it left the way you want it to be left.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we can't do that unfortunately here because we rent out all our rooms here. And like you see at the ambulance corps, for you to set it up and take it down, it's a pain.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
And we miss out on practice time, obviously, yeah.
But, you know, as I said, you know, Tatiana and I, the administrator, we talked about it briefly this afternoon, and, you know, we're going to give us some time to look into seeing what we could do.
Okay.
It's got to be, you know, there's a lot of those different schools around here. You got 7-Day Adventist, you got all these schools. Maybe they have an area that we could maybe reach out to them and see if they could help us.
We've done our best looking on our end, and there's just nothing available. We've tried to keep the program, and we lost money the first year. We try to keep it as inexpensive as possible to keep it accessible for everybody. The only options that are available that we could keep long-term would be renting a space, and that money, that's cost prohibitive. Yeah.
Yeah, give us some, let me, you know, sometimes when you have the administrator and the mayor call somebody up, it goes a little bit different. Not saying that they're going to listen to us, but you never know.
Yeah.
But, you know, give us, you know, let us talk about this a little bit more. Friday, I'm going to be in town hall. I'll be talking with Tatiana about this, and, you know, we'll make some phone calls and see what happens.
Okay. Thank you.
You do have the room here for the 2 days, but then again, it can't be, he's going to be putting it up and then taking it down, because we do have to rent it out to other organizations that want the room. Unfortunately, we don't have that much property to do all this stuff, and, you know, you might be thinking about that place on Wyckoff Avenue, but we cannot build anything there. We have to have it earmarked toward the parks. It's the only way we're going to get our money and funding. And we don't have like a rec center, we don't have anything like that here. But, you know, as I said, let us look into this for you.
Okay. I appreciate that.
And I have your
hope we
email,
can-
so I know how to get in contact.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
I have
you.
one-
Guys,
I have one
quick question.
Yes, sir.
For you. Are you guys affiliated with any of the school program at all? I mean,
No.
I know we have a STEM program in the school. We just built the, you know, fantastic facility up there and all this stuff.
No.
Have you reached out to them?
Yes. At this point, I've seen Glen Rock's STEM program. They've invited us there. They've worked with us. I've seen Northern Highlands, I've seen Don Bosco's STEM program. I have not seen Waldwick's STEM program. I've reached out.
So Principal Carroll and Principal,
Well, my son's in middle school, so
Principal Maris.
yeah, and he's great. He's been very supportive of our club. But the program is not where it should be in Waldwick schools. And frankly, even if the school wanted to be more involved, there's really successful programs. They meet like a sports team, right? They meet every day of the week. What we're doing, having it as a private club, we meet anytime the kids are available. And so, like, especially towards the end of the season, we were in that gentleman's garage and then basement and then office for about a month straight every day. And that was the team that went on to states. And so it's great that we can do that. We can do that in little instances, but not every team can do that. And so you have one team that goes to states and they're meeting every day in somebody's house because they have the room, and other teams don't, and they're meeting at the ambulance building once or twice a week. If the school was involved, it would have to be treated like a sport to be as successful as it should be and to offer the kids what we want the kids to have. It can't
sort of
be
like what they do with the esports program that they have there.
Yeah, it can't be once a week. I mean, my son Jack he just went to the STEM club meeting today, coincidentally. And they're going to meet once a week, and they're going to make a car that runs on a mousetrap. I mean, that's nice, but this is really cool.
That's the love of it.
What space, how much space do you need? What size? I mean, so that you could just leave everything away, go in and come out.
I mean, at least a room that could easily handle, what do you think? What's the square footage? This is Coach Christina.
Hello.
How are you?
I think we've been looking at spaces between 1,500 and 3,000 square feet if we want to actually do it right. This is if we want to continue into high school competition. The high school competition is much bigger than this. Legos is easy. We can fit Legos in this. We can fit Legos in our basement. We cannot fit high school competition in our basement.
How about, does it have to be here in Waldwick, the space?
We'd like to keep it a Waldwick club.
It does. Right? I mean, we're open at this point. We'll take what we can get.
Yeah. And just to kind of pull back a little bit, we would take anything at this point, right? If we take a room that could fit 2 folding tables, honestly, and then with the goal of growing in the years to come. But immediately, I mean, we need a room. And I hope that's not too much to ask.
We'll try. We'll try it as hard as we can try. I mean, we can't guarantee you anything, but we're going to look around.
Right.
I mean, I have some people in other towns. I have a couple of friends that own warehouses. I'll see what could be done.
Thank you.
It doesn't hurt to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to congratulate the coaches and the young people. I've been following your success.
Thank you.
Very impressive what you've been able to do with such limited budget and space and resources. But again, you guys are doing a really good job, and hopefully we can find a space.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone else?
I was supposed to meet that young man about 4 weeks ago. My name is Ray Cruz. How are you? Thank you all for surviving the storms. I'm actually here not to complain about anything or say anything other than see your beautiful faces and say thank you to 3 specific people in town. As many of you know, I set up the Snow Angel program, I don't know, 6 years ago, something like that, to help our most vulnerable residents. Sorry, I'm just getting over a illness, so my voice is a little off. In that time, we've had, in the beginning, I would say 4 to 5 volunteers that go around town during snowstorms and help out, a list of people that really need help. The DPW does do a great job. And for those listening, yes, I am the Waldwick United admin. Calm down. The DPW, I'm out there at 2 o'clock shoveling or with my machine. DPW's out there. I see them on my cameras all night long coming through these streets. They do a great job. Despite equipment breakdowns and all of that, I wanted to take a moment to say thank you for all they've done. We've had 2 historic storms in less than 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks apart. I think they've done a great job to keep us moving forward. And the fact that no emergencies were called in the past storm was, I think that needs to be shouted from the rooftops. But specifically, in those 6 years, there's been 3 specific people who have been constants. In this particular storm, I injured my left shoulder. I really couldn't go out there as much as I could have, but I'm going to name these 3 people, and I posit that one of you goes out there and maybe makes a resolution to honor them, bring them up here, and let them know how much, for the past 6 years, I've been very appreciative, but also the people who are silent, bedridden, are as appreciative to them. Richard Rukowski, who, from what I understand, is coming back to Wolvac, right? So to help Wolvac. I met with the Wolvac team a couple weeks back to help them on a different project, Mayor Giordano, that I'm working on with them. But Richard Rukowski, no less than, I would say, 5 or 6 homes this past storm, did on his own. I couldn't go out there and help him out, but it was just us 2. I don't want to hear anybody laughing, but yes, Anthony Cacciola. Over the past 6 years, he has been a constant. Regards all his busting of you-know-what online, he's got a heart of gold. He's out there helping his old teacher, helping out people he went to school with. Pretty much every time he goes out there and tries to shovel somebody out, it's like, oh, I went to school here, and that lady was my math teacher, that lady was my English teacher. These people have cancer, they have other ailments that just limit their ability to actually do something for themselves, and their kids are away, right? So these are the types of people that we get on this list. And then Sharon Lee, who, with her kids, goes out there and makes them shovel pretty much anybody's house she runs into. So these 3 people are a shining example of what Waldwick is all about. Not just because of the service that we get from great people like you guys, as well as the DPW and everybody else behind me here, who do it either as a volunteer service in a job, but also do it because this is the right thing to do. We always get the same question, why are you doing this? They try to pay us. So, because when I get old, I am getting old, right? I'll only shave because I don't want to look like Mr. Bosongs here. But the only reason we do this is because we always want it to be paid forward. Hopefully one day, somebody's going to shovel my driveway, someone's going to do something really nice for me, but ultimately we know that kindness is missing a lot in this day and age. Unity and Waldwick United is all about bringing people together for the things that actually matter. And so my request is for anyone on the council to take up a resolution to honor these 3 people for the past 6 years in their years of service.
We don't need a resolution. What I'll do is I'll reach out to you, and after we finish our budget and pass it, we'll talk.
Awesome. Thank you. That's all.
Yes, young man?
Young man, oh jeez. Dan Merrill, Waldwick Board of Education. I would just like to invite you all to the Board of Ed meeting Thursday. We will be introducing our new superintendent of schools. And I would just, I know Mr. Vittori's here. The Board of Ed would like to thank the DPW because of their work over this past weekend. We were able to have a delayed opening today where towns our size were closed. So we appreciate it, and it saved us an emergency day that we could use at a later date or in the future. So thank you, Mr. Vittori, for your work. And
Gotta thank the wife, she's more important.
no, I get that. Trust me, I get it. But it's just sad that what went on over the weekend on the internet. That's just...
It happens.
Yeah, I know. It happens to me a lot too, but I get it. But it's just not what we're about. I think
That's what Ray just said.
We need a little bit better on that.
Yep.
And Mr. Ritchie, we look forward to sitting down on the pilot program.
I would love nothing more.
We're waiting for it.
Someone has to ask us first.
We don't want to work on the hypothetical situation. We'd rather you get your stuff in order than get back to us. It's easier that way for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, I have a motion to go into close. Motion by Joe, second by Mike. No decision will be made. Thank you very much.